Right now, on to the point. As the Trump administration works to cut federal spending, what it means for your bottom line.
I think that money will be clawed back to the federal government.
Plus, federal layoffs could impact avalanche forecasting in the Sierra.
I think we're very much in sort of a nervous holding pattern.
Tonight, the safety concerns. California public schools put on a deadline, the new directive from the Department of Education to end DEI programs or risk funding. And the alleged leader of a group linked to killings across the country and here in California, now behind bars. The new details in the investigation. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on To The Point. I'm Alex Bell. Tonight, more changes are coming down from the Trump administration as they work to reshape the federal government. We are looking into the possible impacts for us here in California. But first, Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency are zeroing in on several agencies, a top security official resigning amid DOJ's efforts. Nearly 1 month into his second term, today President Trump is moving forward with his agenda, signing new executive orders, including one to study how to expand access to in vitro fertilization and make it more affordable. Meanwhile, from coast to coast and north to south, recently fired federal workers and other protesters are condemning DOJ's actions as an overreach of power. People gathered outside of a federal building in Chicago today.
It's not federal workers who are your enemy. It is people who put profits over workers.
And in Austin on President's Day.
I think they're calling programs that they don't like fraudulent, and they're not fraudulent, they just don't like them.
Those protesting Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency are pushing back against DOJ's sweeping cuts to the workforce and the potential access it's gaining along the way. The Social Security Administration's top official resigned, clashing with DOJ employees over access to records that include the earnings, benefits, and even medical records of millions of Americans. The White House says DOJ's moves are to make good on Trump's campaign promise of slashing government spending.
When you look at some of the waste, fraud, and abuse that's being uncovered by DOJ, they're finding levels of fraud and waste and abuse like I think nobody ever thought possible.
It's unclear what DOJ found at the Social Security Administration and what its employees ultimately got access to. And tonight, a federal judge has refused to block Elon Musk and DOJ from accessing government data systems or participating in worker layoffs. It comes after 14 states filed a lawsuit challenging DOJ's authority to access that sensitive government data. And as DOJ continues to make cuts, one viewer did reach out to us asking where California's federal tax dollars will go. So I want to bring in ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen. She joins us in studio tonight with what experts believe could happen.
Alex, many Democratic leaders here in California have been fighting with DOJ, believing the cuts made on a federal level will negatively impact the state. But a tax expert I spoke with today tells me he believes Californians can expect to see some savings when it comes to federal taxes.
I want to downsize government, but make it better. Run it better.
Cutting federal spending has been one of President Donald Trump's main goals, and he's been doing that with the help of Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOJ.
I fully expect to be scrutinized.
With the continued threats of cuts, California taxpayers are wondering what will happen to the federal tax dollars that have already been paid.
I think that money will be clawed back to the federal government.
John Kupal is with Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, an organization aimed at advocating for taxpayers to prevent overspending. He agrees with the work DOJ is currently doing and believes Californians will get their savings back in other ways.
I don't see California getting it, other than perhaps the citizens of California getting it in the form of Social Security payments. It will go back into the budget.
And regardless of the work DOJ is doing, Kupal believes taxpayers could possibly see a tax reduction at the federal level.
Tax reductions will happen irrespective of what happens with the DOJ project, because President Trump promised the tax reductions as part of his tax reduction package.
California Democratic leaders have openly opposed the cuts DOJ has proposed. Last week, Attorney General Rob Bonta sued the Trump administration for freezing federal funds. Bonta has claimed these federal dollars are crucial to the state.
The administration must comply with the court order and disperse all federal funding immediately, so the programs and services our people rely on aren't disrupted and can fully resume without further interruption.
Sacramento State economics professor Rob Wasmer believes there is no tie between California tax dollars and what taxpayers get back, believing that Californians will feel the cuts when it comes to programs and resources to the state.
Trump and his people, have it kind of in for blue states right? So, with the things that they are cutting are probably going to be, more geared to hurting California.
Ultimately, experts tell me it's still too early to tell what will actually happen to the federal tax dollars Californians contribute to. Alex.
All right, Janie, thank you. Colleges and K-12 schools have been ordered by the Trump administration to end diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and initiatives or run the risk of losing federal funding. So this letter was sent by the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights and says, quote, treating students differently on the basis of race to achieve nebulous goals such as diversity, racial balancing, social justice, or equity is illegal under controlling Supreme Court precedent. End quote. Professor of Education and Public Policy Sean Harper says it has been enormously stressful for education officials in the state.
It has required them to scramble to determine ways to maintain their commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion without losing their federal funding. So right now, all across America, including here in California, millions of educators are literally scrambling to figure out how to balance those two things.
It's still unclear how K-12 schools and colleges in our area will respond to the directive. The California State University system said it was aware of the letter and said in part, quote, as this type of action is unprecedented, we are consulting with the California Attorney General and higher education partners across the country to better understand the statewide impact of this letter. President Trump has also said that he plans to shut down or shrink the Department of Education, but can he do this as the president on his own? Courtney Robinson verifies for us tonight.
In 2023, President Donald Trump made a campaign promise to close the DOE.
And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states.
Democratic lawmakers claim he cannot do that with an executive order. Let's verify if that's true using these sources. The Constitution gives the president a number of powers, like granting pardons, vetoing bills, and acting as commander-in-chief. The Constitution says nothing about abolishing federal agencies. Congress has that power through legislation. Federal law does allow the president to give lawmakers what's called a reorganization plan to consider. It would lay out how the agency's operations could either be cut or passed off to another agency. Even with Republicans in control in both chambers, support for eliminating an entire department historically has not come easy. There are also filibuster rules that could force a supermajority vote on the issue, which is even harder to secure. Another option, Congress can pass what's called a Reorganization Act, which would give the president specific guidelines to follow. The last time that was used to abolish a federal agency was in 1933 under FDR. So we can verify, no, the president does not have the power to abolish a federal agency on his own. He would still need congressional approval. The president's executive order can still heavily impact the Department of Education by shutting down programs and shifting operations to other parts of the government. With your Verify, I'm Courtney Robinson.
Still ahead on To the Point, how federal layoffs could impact avalanche forecasting in the Sierra, the concerns about safety.
Slim chance of rain for the first few hours of tomorrow morning, but the big story, temperatures are warming up. We'll be almost 10 degrees above average by this weekend. I've got a look at just how warm coming up.
Plus new details in the Delta plane crash. Tonight, a passenger recounts the moment that plane flipped over.
We ended upside down. I was hanging there in my seatbelt upside down.
All right, let's get a look at your forecast with meteorologist Brendan Minshove joining us tonight. Some rain moving into our forecast. Just a little bit, though, right?
Just a little.
Yeah, nothing to be, like, alarmed.
Yeah, absolutely not. No weather impact alert. This is nothing like what we've seen for much of the last week or so. Just some very, very light rain tomorrow morning. In fact, we've got a little bit of light rain out there right now as we take a look at radar and satellite. And this is going to be up in the high country. Not all of this is making it to the ground. We see it on radar, but that means it's up in the air, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that that rain is falling all the way to the surface. So some parts of the Sierra a little bit wet this evening. Other parts are going to remain dry. We will be dry in the valley through the rest of this evening. It will be overcast, though. That'll continue through the overnight and most of tomorrow. We made it to 63 today in Sacramento. That is exactly the average for the time of year. 64 in Stockton, 64 in Modesto, 65 Vacaville, 63 in Fairfield. Right now, We are about 58 in Sacramento, 58 in Modesto, 57 Stockton, 58 Vacaville, 58 in Fairfield, 40s, 50s in the foothills, 30s up in the high country. We'll continue to drop through the 50s as we go through the rest of this evening. Clouds are sticking with us, though. It'll be overcast this evening, overcast all the way through tomorrow morning as well. For that reason, lows are going to be a little bit warmer. We're going to be looking at lows in those mid to even some upper 40s to start Wednesday morning. And again, there's going to be a slim chance for some showers tomorrow morning as well. We'll call it light AM showers. And then for the upper valley, better chance of showers as we go through the afternoon. Snow up in the high country, but none of this is really that impactful. Maybe early tomorrow morning, a little bit of a snow shower moving through the I-80 corridor. By 9 o'clock, it is cloudy, but we don't really see a lot of that rain until we get closer to the lunchtime hours, and it's just going to be some very light showers. Totals are going to be just a few hundredths of an inch of rain in the valley. Once we get into the afternoon, we'll see some of those snow showers moving through the Sierra, and that is about it. Maybe one more round of some snow showers later on Wednesday evening. By the time we get to about midnight, we're done with the rain, and the snow and Thursday will be dry. So again, this is not very much at all. Look at these model rainfall totals, maybe a few hundredths of an inch. We'll call it maybe 500ths of an inch across the valley. It is just not that much, just some light showers, especially as you go through the later morning hours. In terms of snowfall, not much until we get into the afternoon. Then we're looking at 1 to 3 inches, especially across Interstate 80. Maybe we'll see some chain controls for a very brief period. Again, this is just so light that it's going to be borderline even for the chains. The one thing I will say is it is going to be very windy up in the high country tomorrow. We could see gusts over 40 miles an hour. That could create, even though it's light snow, it could create some blowing snow. We'll keep that in mind. But look at this. Once we get past that rain early Wednesday morning into the lunchtime hours, we dry out. We're going to end February on a dry note. And look at those temperatures. We've got 70s by the time we get to Sunday, Alex.
All right, Brendan, thank you. Next, on to the point. Federal layoffs could impact staffing at the Sierra Avalanche Center. What this means for forecasting and safety. And alleged leaders of a cult-like group facing a judge today. The new details on the investigation into multiple deaths across the U.S. Plus, U.S. and Russian officials meeting to discuss the war in Ukraine, the latest on the efforts to try to end the war. Welcome back. Tonight, we're learning that the Sierra Avalanche Center in Truckee could be impacted by cuts to the federal government. The center provides critical avalanche forecasts, telling backcountry enthusiasts where the danger is. So we're told one of the employees received a letter from the federal government about being laid off. So ABC 10's Garshpal Sangha spoke to the executive director about the possible impacts.
In the Sierra, the mountains may be stunning, but they could also be deadly. The snow-covered peaks are a draw for backcountry skiers like Amy Doran.
There's just an exponential growth in people who say that they go and ski in the backcountry.
She has called the North Lake Tahoe community home for more than 20 years, and the threat of avalanches are not far from her mind.
Big avalanches in our area that have unfortunately taken the lives of some of our friends. What helps mitigate those sorts of situations is having avalanche forecasters out there every day.
A portion of the critical lifeline could be taken away, as the Sierra Avalanche Center says the federal government cuts underway threatens to take away one of their 3 forecasters.
I think we're very much in sort of a nervous holding pattern.
David Reichel, the executive director for the center, says if they lost an avalanche forecaster, they have no choice but to go from delivering avalanche forecasts from 7 days a week to 4.
Certainly winter is a tough time to abruptly lose an avalanche forecaster.
What difference do those 3 days make?
The avalanche danger can change quickly. It's very useful for us to have field staff, avalanche forecasters in the field continuously, so someone's always monitoring the snow and how it's changing. In a mountain community, it's absolutely life and death. There's close calls.
Reichel says more than 200,000 people rely on their forecast, and those reports have saved lives. The center also assists law enforcement and search crews during rescues in the backcountry, something backcountry skiers like Dan Thornton appreciates.
It's a lifeline for thousands of people that live, work, and recreate in the Sierra. The avalanche risk doesn't take a day off.
The center covers a massive area from Sierraville in Sierra County to Bear Valley in Alpine County. As winter season rolls on, the community is hoping a vital tool for winter recreation remains in place 7 days a week.
They're the most efficient people around, they keep our community safe, and that's the most important thing.
Garch Paul Sunga, ABC 10.
The Sierra Avalanche Center is urging the public to take action by reaching out to federal lawmakers, demanding that funding not be taken away. We reached out to Representative Kevin Kiley's office, who represents this area of the Sierra, and we have not heard back. Over on the ABC 10 Plus app, we are looking at how more of Trump's actions could impact California, from tariffs, buyouts, and the Los Angeles wildfire fallout. Political insiders Roger Salazar and Craig DeLuce break down the top headlines. You can watch our coverage on the home screen of the free ABC 10 Plus app, wherever you stream. Turning now to the war in Ukraine, top American and Russian diplomats held a historic meeting today discussing a potential end to Russia's war in Ukraine. The meeting took place in Saudi Arabia and included Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, a Russian foreign minister, and aide to Vladimir Putin. Rubio described the meeting as upbeat and constructive, but did not map out a potential path to end Russia's aggression.
There has to be concessions made by all sides. We're not going to predetermine what those are. We're certainly not going to negotiate this today. The goal is to bring an end to this conflict in a way that's fair, enduring, sustainable, and acceptable to all parties involved.
The two sides did agree to appoint teams that would continue discussions. Ukraine was not invited to these talks, nor were European allies. As part of any agreement, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky insists on security guarantees, troops or peacekeeping forces to prevent the war from restarting. Tonight, an urgent investigation is underway into the Delta plane that crashed in Toronto that injured 21 people. New video being reviewed by investigators show the fiery crash landing from Minneapolis, the plane hitting the snowy tarmac at Toronto Pearson International Airport, bursting into flames and then tumbling over multiple times with 76 passengers and 4 crew members on board.
We hit the runway really hard, and like extremely hard, and we kind of popped up and it felt like we were leaning to the left, and then we were going sideways. I'm not even sure how many times we like tumbled, but we ended upside down. I was hanging there in my seatbelt upside down.
21 people were hurt and taken to the hospital. Most of them have now been released. No cause has been determined, but airport officials say the wintry weather was rougher than usual in the days leading up to that crash. The leader of a cult-like group linked to multiple murders across the country was ordered to be held without bail in a Maryland County court today. Jack Lazota from Berkeley was arrested on Sunday along with 2 other members of the Zizian group. Reporter Leslie Brinkley has the latest on the case.
3 suspects appeared in a Maryland courtroom Tuesday morning facing gun and trespassing charges, but they have apparent ties to a cult-like group called the Zizians with Bay Area connections. Prosecutors said 34-year-old Jack Lazota from Berkeley appears to be the leader of an extremist group known as Zizians that has been linked to 6 murders in 3 states. Also appearing alongside Lazota were Michelle Zhajko from Pennsylvania and Daniel Blank from Sacramento. The 3 were arrested in Maryland over the weekend. AP reported they wore gun belts holding ammunition and possessed several weapons. A state attorney said Lazota previously faked her own death, leading her Bay Area family to declare her dead from a San Francisco Bay drowning a few years ago. The Zizians have ties to a 2022 murder in Vallejo and an attack on a landlord there. Suspect Michelle Zhajko's parents were found murdered in Pennsylvania that year as well. Then in January of this year, the Vallejo landlord Curtis Lind was found murdered. Zizian member Maximilian Snyder was arrested and charged in what prosecutors say was a plot to prevent Lind from testifying in court. Snyder's fiancée, Teresa Youngblood, was then arrested in Vermont a few days later for killing a Border Patrol agent, and a passenger in a car was also killed. Snyder will be back in court in March in Solano County. Lazota, Blank, and Zhajko will be back in court on March 24th.
All right, stay with us. Next, on to the point why Bigfoot is mentioned in a newly proposed state law. A California lawmaker is proposing to make Bigfoot the state's official mythical creature. A new bill would designate it as the official state cryptid, and a cryptid is a creature that people believe to be real, but it's not been proven to really exist. But over the years, we know that Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, has allegedly been spotted roaming in the Humboldt County redwood forest or other communities here in Northern California. And if the law passes, Bigfoot would join countless other state symbols, including the iconic grizzly bear that appears on our state flag. I don't know what to say after that story. So we're going to go ahead and end the show here. Thank you so much for watching and inviting us into your home. If you have something that we should be looking into, like Bigfoot, make sure to reach out to me and the team. We love to get your emails. You can always email us at tothepoint@abc10.com. And remember, strangers are just people we haven't got the chance to meet yet. So take the time to get to know someone.